Okay, we are live. So, hello everyone, and welcome to round 4 of the Zwift Racing League. Tonight we have 5 of our riders in action on the greatest London flat. So it's 1 lap, 31 kilometres of a team time trial loop. This is one of my favourite courses, I have to say, Matt. What do you think of it?
It's one of my favourite courses. As you know, I like a bit more of a hill. It's quite a flat course. There's a bit of a climb about 18 kilometres in, just at the bottom of Box Hill. Instead of turning right onto Box Hill, the riders will continue round, finish the loop, go up the short steep climb of the escalator out of the underground, and back around and finish down the mall.
Yeah, as you say, the clue's in the name, isn't it? The greatest London flat, so it is a pretty flat and fast course. And as you can see, there aren't many teams left in the pen. I think there are 2 other teams left with us. So the girls are due to go off at 27 minutes past 7. So this event started at 16 minutes past, and from 16 minutes past each minute, another team was set off. So that is why there are only 3 teams left in the pen. And of course, because we are, thanks to the girls' performances over the last 3 rounds, we're seeded the fastest team. So it's going to be up to these 5 riders to chase down the teams in front.
Yeah, it looks like there's just 1 more team to go off before the Loughborough Lightning, the Recruitment Group team, and that would be the Loughborough Cycling. I think they have actually just gone off. Can't see them on my screen, maybe I'm a bit delayed, but the next rider off, so in about 30-40 seconds time, the riders will be starting their team time trial. As Travis said, 31 kilometres, bit of a lead into the main circuit, which will be about a 26 kilometre loop. You'll see this first section twice, so at the start of the race and at the end as well. Looks like last team on the road, so the riders will be able to have a good look at the riders in front and see if they're catching him up or not. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll see this time coming down and the riders catching the teams in front again. And it looks like we've just started as well.
Yeah, away we go. So we're on board with Albany at the moment as the Olympic Velodrome is just going out of sight there. Flora nicely coming past Albany. I'm not sure who that off the front, I think it's Chloe. So yeah, the 5 riders need to try and get into that nice aerodynamic streamlined bubble position, but they're only a few hundred metres in and plenty of time to settle into that rhythm just yet. Heart rate's already climbing up past 150 beats per minute for Albany, spinning away there just over 80 RPM, and they are all together just going up a slight little rise, almost 400 metres into the race.
I spoke to Dave, the director sportif for this time trial earlier. He's going to be in the riders' ears on Discord, speaking to them and guiding them through, telling them their changes. And he said, I think that Frankie's going to do maybe some 1.5 minute length turns, and the other riders more around the 30 to 40 second mark. You know, Frankie is a very strong time trialist, having won the Bucks 25-mile time trial last weekend. So it would be good to see her pulling some long turns and keeping the pace high. The other riders can come through and do their turns afterward.
For sure, yeah. I mean, what do you think will happen, Matt? Will Frankie do those turns and then kind of sit mid-pack? Or will she kind of just sort of sit off the back and recover as much as possible? Or is that a bit of a risky tactic and sort of risk getting dropped after such a long turn on the front?
It's important just to drift back through the group slowly, regain the draft, maybe not quite go to the back, but I think she'll ideally want to go to the back. What they normally do is, obviously they have their numbers next to their names on the right, so they'll try and keep in that order, try and keep one long line, so each rider follows the next rider through the pack. So yeah, I'd say Frankie would go to the back, try and keep in order and wait for her next turn to come through after all the other riders have done their turns.
So as you say, they've got numbers next to their name. So we're on board with Hannah at the moment. She's got number 2 next to her name. what's kind of what do you think the order is with that? Is it kind of like, so the number one rider is the strongest, or is it kind of just so that they can quickly glance up the screen and sort of see, number four's there, that's Flora, for example?
I think it would be more, not necessarily the strongest rider, but just the order of the riders. So you know that there's number two in front of you, and sit behind that rider and wait for your next turn to come through.
And will they be, I guess they'll be communicating that amongst the group. I suppose these first few kilometres, it's probably fairly easy to keep an order, I guess, in terms of everybody's fresh, everybody's motivated and putting out good power. But I guess towards the end of the event, when actually heart rates are getting higher and legs are getting a bit ragged, I guess that's really when they're going to have to start communicating and sort of speaking to each other and saying, I can't pull this turn, I need to miss one, sit on the back for a little bit. I guess that's probably where the number system goes out the window a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, this course has got small little climbs later on into the race, so it'll be important to communicate there. If you're struggling a bit, maybe the riders can ease back the pace just to make sure you get over the climb into the descent and they can get a rest. It's quite easy to overdo it a little bit in these team time trials, so if you do a turn a little bit too long and you don't quite get on the draft in the back and you have to make an extra effort, all these little efforts earlier on into this team time trial, you can pay for them after 20-30 minutes.
I suppose at a distance of 31 kilometres, I guess it can be expected to last, I guess, anywhere between 40, 50 minutes?
Yeah, I'd say I was watching some of the men's earlier and I think they did it in around 40, 41 minutes. So I'd say maybe 42 to 45 minutes around there. Obviously, they're looking at power to weight. It's not too much different to the men's, really. So these riders are set, Frankie's on the front now at just over 5 watts per kilo. And some of the men, maybe just a little bit higher, going up to 6 watts per kilo, but still very good pace, just sitting under 30 mile an hour on this flat section of the course before we turn right here and tackle the first drag on the course, the first little climb, which can easily catch a couple of riders out if you're not paying attention.
For sure, especially with Frankie drilling it on the front, almost hitting 6 watts per kilo there. I guess it's as you said, very easy to get caught out even on the slightest inclines.
So we're looking now, it's going up to 5%. All the riders are having to push on just that little bit. Obviously, at these speeds, there's still a bit of draft. However, there's not as much as if you're going quicker. So you can see these riders, most of them at around the 4.5 to 5 watts per kilo mark. Just trying to block together a bit, try not to lose the draft. And then I think one rider will push it over the top, get back up to speed onto the descent, before the next rider will pull maybe halfway down the descent, carry the speed into the flat and into the next right-hander.
I think one of the things I like so much about this course is you almost feel like you're being a tourist around London again as you see just went past the turning down to the Mall there. As you said, the starting pen was had the backdrop of the Olympic Velodrome. It says Nelson's column in the background as well, so there's plenty of sights to kind of take in as you ride around this course. But I doubt that's going to be on any of these girls' minds right now.
So you can see Big Ben in the distance, maybe just going out of view right now. We turn in right, do a bit of a loop, past the virtual Buckingham Palace and onto the Mall for taking in a bit more of the Surrey Hills later into the course. Obviously not doing the hills, but going close to them. You'll see the turn-off for them later in the race. The famous Boxdale will be going past that. Maybe in a team time trial in the future, they may make it difficult and go up some of the hills. I think that would be horrible, but maybe to spice it up, they could add something in like that one day.
I'm sure it's in the pipeline, that's for sure. It would definitely be an interesting one. I guess you'd want all 6 riders to start, and then you kind of burn off your bigger guys, I suppose, your bigger teammates, and then the lighter ones will kind of dance up the climb, I guess. But then that equally all depends on how much flat is left afterwards, I suppose. You could really scupper some plans by chucking in the climb right at the start or in the middle, I guess. But we'll have to wait and see if they include it in future Swift racing leagues.
Yeah, so the last Swift Racing League, they did a course, the New York one, similar to last week's course.
Mm-hmm.
And halfway through it went up the KOM climb.
Oh.
And it's quite a difficult one because you want to try and keep as many people as possible for the rest of the course. But obviously the stronger climbers couldn't push on as much as they'd want to on the climb. So you'd have to use them more on the flat. And then the bigger riders, the heavier riders, the ones not quite as strong on the climb, to set the pace on the front. So obviously the weakest rider, so you don't drop them. And then over the top, they could rest down the descent while the stronger climbers still had a little bit of energy left from the climb and could push on down the descent.
Sure, yeah. I think on the surface of it, when people look at Swift racing, they don't realise just how tactical it is. And obviously, with it being on turbo trainers and you can kind of be connected to phones, laptops, etc., actually, it's a lot easier to be in touch with your teammates. And as you said, your director sportif, which is a cycling word for kind of team director, I suppose. And actually, it's a lot easier to be in touch with your teammates than say, being out on the road during a road race or a crit. So a lot of teams drill into some significant detail into looking on the course. And as you said, as you kind of gave us a bit of an insight there, actually, how to burn off riders, where's best to use them, etc., and playing to their different strengths. And I think that's one thing that Loughborough Lightning, the recruitment group, certainly do before each week, is putting in those not necessarily hard miles. Obviously, they are putting in the hard miles in training, but also being smart about it and actually not losing any time through sort of inexperience or silly mistakes in terms of how they ride the course. We're just on board with Frankie, and she's broken away from Hannah a little bit. So I guess it's a case of either Frankie eases back a little bit, or the rest of them need to put in a little bit of a surge to get back up to her rear wheel.
Absolutely. It looks like now they've come back into more of a line, got back together into the draft, and now Frankie's pushing on the front, 5 watts per kilo, with Flora just behind her. I think she's going to be pulling the next turn, coming into down the mile, past what will be the finish line. So we'll go past the finish line and we'll have one long lap to go. Looking at the timing as well, I think they're 3 seconds in front of the team ahead. And they've got around 15 to 16 seconds on the team that started 2 minutes ahead of them. So far, so good for the team.
Definitely, yeah. And I suppose we're not quite, about a quarter of the way through, not quite. So yeah, I guess if you'd like, this is a decent intermediate time check. As we come underneath the sprint banner, which is coming up. Of course, no sprints to be contested this week. At least there's no points on the line. I'm sure the green jersey will be awarded in the game, but it doesn't affect the standings as far as I'm aware. But yeah, it's just it's good to see they're already now 4 seconds, 3 seconds up around there. So just got to be careful to hold on to that lead and hopefully they haven't gone out too hard. But the same could be said for the Loughborough cycling team. They may have gone out too hard and spent too many of their pennies early on in an effort to try and demoralise the Loughborough Lightning recruitment group team. But even if they have, that hasn't worked because they're already 3 seconds up. So let's see how much of an inroads they can make.
I think with this course, it'd be quite important to do a negative split, obviously, with a bit more of the harder climbs later on in the course. Save a little bit at the start, push it hard over those climbs, and then onto the flat. If you have some energy left after those sections, you can really bring some time back from the teams ahead. But it looks like they've just lost a couple of seconds in this last section. Maybe they're just easing up just a little bit, knowing that the climbs are coming in about another 8 kilometres time, so they're about halfway as they ride through a couple of riders there. Good Zwift physics there, riding through some riders.
It certainly seems like the squad is better at riding. Well, they're better suited to riding up the climbs than perhaps on the flat. Like you said, they lost a couple of seconds there going down the mall, but actually where they seem to have gained seconds or are gaining seconds is actually on those short, sharp climbs. So that bodes well for the second half of the race.
In it looked like then one of the riders just popped a power up, but I don't know how I managed that because there's none in this event.
Yeah, I mean, Zwift certainly isn't perfect. Like the real world, there's going to be glitches and mistakes, I suppose. So it's one of those things. But if they did get a power up, then happy days, making their lives a little bit easier.
Absolutely. But looking at the equipment that they're on now, they're obviously going for as fast as back as they possibly can. It does make a difference in the game. A couple of riders on the Tron bike, which is a really good all-round bike. Obviously, they can't use time trial bikes in this game because you cannot draft on a time trial bike. Maybe that's something that Zwift could address. So all the riders are actually on the team time trial on the time trial bike. But either way, good road bike time trial.
I can imagine that being a very painful mistake, entering a team time trial on a time trial bike, because of course it is possible to select a time trial bike for these races and actually just have to do all the work yourself because you're not able to get any respite off your teammates. Certainly something you wouldn't repeat, that's for sure.
Yeah, I've known people do it before, maybe not this year, but in the past when team time trials first came about, put on the time trial bike and we're going to go much quicker. Then you realise that you can't draft, and yeah, as you said, never make that mistake again.
Quickly becomes an individual time trial with some hangers on, I guess.
Yeah, if you all have the time trial bike on, that'd be quite painful, wouldn't it? Just 5 individual time trials.
Absolute nightmare, yeah. Well, we're just about to go through the 10 kilometre mark in about 14 minutes and 10 seconds. So yeah, motoring along. It will be I think they're, I guess, not quite on course for that 42 minutes we were sort of saying about, especially when you consider there are a few punchy climbs towards the end. But I think, they're still certainly going to be right up there at the top of the results. Hopefully gunning for the win. They are about a second down on the Loughborough cycling team. So if you look on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see there's a group of cyclists above Chloe's name with the Loughborough cycling name in brackets, and they are 1 minute and 1 second down. 1 minute 1 second further along the course. So what we want that number to be ideally under a minute. That shows that the riders from Loughborough Lightning, the Recruitment Group, are up on Loughborough, so to speak, and every second over a minute, that shows that the Loughborough cycling team are ahead of our team.
Absolutely. Still only about a third of the way through this time trial, 15 minutes in. It's going to start to hurt about now, but there's still plenty of time left to bring that gap down, which is what we all want to see. So show some encouragement, like the video, come into the chat, say hello, subscribe to the channel, put the notification on so you don't miss any more of these team time trials. If you have any questions, let us know. Put it in the chat. We'll be sure to try and answer them as well as possible. And give these riders some support. You can go on the Zwift companion app if you have a Zwift account. Give these riders a thumbs up, a ride down. I'm sure about now they would be very happy with a bit of encouragement as well.
Yeah, that's for sure. It'd be nice to see a couple of those blue thumbs drop into the back pockets of the riders. Looks like they've got a fair few already. Their pockets glowing blue. If you have the Zwift companion app, then be sure to give our riders a thumbs up and give them a bit of encouragement as they just go up this rise coming out of the tunnel. Again, just need to be careful they don't stretch it out too much here, but I think they pretty much nailed that in that nice aerodynamic. As you said, good Zwift physics. I hadn't heard that phrase before that, but I like that. So I'm going to...
Absolutely. Zwift physics is a little bit different to real life, so it takes a bit of getting used to, a bit of practice. This is their second team time trial now. Obviously, they won the first one. I think, was it by about 17 seconds in the end? So, obviously, they've got their 100% win record to try and keep in this league.
For sure. It looks like, they're still on track for it. Of course, they are a second down on the Rock Corp cycling team, but they are still very much in the running for the win. The team, I think, is that the KCA1 team. That's not a team I'm familiar with from the past 3 rounds, but they've obviously got a good seeding for today. They are 10 seconds down on our riders, 11 seconds down on our riders. So fingers crossed it keeps that way or pushes out even more. And in theory, these 3 teams on the right-hand side that you can see should be the quickest teams of the day. So hopefully, at very least, we are looking at second place.
Yeah, definitely. It's holding around that 1 minute 2 second mark. It does sort of depend on the finishing time. Does depend on when you do go through the banner. So maybe a couple of seconds difference, but it's normally a pretty good guide as to how far behind or how far ahead you are compared to the other teams. So we'll be coming soon over the bridge into the underground. It'll be quite an interesting part of Zwift there, going through the underground, out into the Surrey Hills, up the little climb, the little drag. I think it's about 4% for just over 1 kilometre. And then back round to where the course started for the final 8 to 10 kilometre, fairly flat, into the finish.
Even though it's flat, it's still going to be painful though.
Absolutely. It's very much, if you're into cycling, an over-unders kind of session. So you're going above your critical power for, however long your turn is, 30 seconds to a minute, and then trying to recover just below it. It's such a hard effort trying to recover while you're still pressing on quite hard.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of doing one of those sessions today, and I can tell you it was not well. It wasn't much fun. Let's put it that way. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah, that's the sessions you like, though, Travis, isn't it? Time trial sessions.
Yeah, well, I mean, got to keep the time trialing up, as it's the only racing that we've been able to do in real life at the moment. But bring on the road racing when we can get some more punchy efforts in. I think that's the kind of training I'm looking forward to. I'm sure these girls will as well.
Me too. I love a bit of punchy training. I think a couple of these riders, are they racing this weekend in the Leicester Road Club 25-mile time trial? I think they are, aren't they?
I'll be honest, I haven't really looked at the start list, but all I know from the social media headlines is it's certainly going to be a stacked one. For the likes of Rebel Pro Cycling and a couple of other big name teams making an appearance. So it'll be good to see how they fare. Obviously, sort of their second in real life appearance after the Bucks 25-mile that you mentioned last weekend. So still time trialing at the moment, but maybe a little bit closer to road racing, seeing it is on road bikes, but not quite back to the full bunch racing that we're all really, really looking forward to, which will hopefully be gracing our roads and city centres in the next couple of months.
Absolutely, it's looking like there's a couple of events coming on around about the 17th of May, I think the first road races are, the weekend after that. So that'll be good. A couple of test events, men's and women's, 2, 3, 4s, elite races. And it's looking like there's some bigger races, especially for the women, coming in June. On the 27th of June will be the Sickle Classic. I'm sure the team will be going to that, I'm pretty sure. Especially with it being a very, very local event, just about 20, 25 miles down the road.
Sounds perfect for a bit of team practice as well.
Absolutely, very good, very easy to recce the course with it being so close to Loughborough.
So it looks like Flora has dropped off. So either via technical difficulties or perhaps she's just burned all of her matches. But as you can see, she's now dropping back fairly sharply. So 1 minute 20 and counting behind. So I suppose that could have been a tactical move on the team's part to make sure she sort of gives a 110% effort in the first part of the race or the first half of the race. Of course, we are now over halfway. But now we've got the 4 riders, and we have got to finish with these 4 riders Otherwise, well, your results don't count.
Yeah, so I've seen some messages today. I think the floor's got a couple of small fans, so maybe the ventilation isn't perfect for this team time trial. Obviously, that's a big thing with Zwift. You've got to keep cool. That's quite a big part of it. If you want your heart rate to drop, you have to try and cool yourself as much as possible, especially as we've had a couple of cold weeks, really. And then you go into your baking hot university room, or wherever you are, and if the fans aren't super, super strong, you can suffer a lot more than if you're outside. I'm sure you've experienced that firsthand, Travis.
Oh, crikey. Yeah, many, many times before. But now I've learnt my lessons and I've got a decent fan. So, but as you see, I don't know if that heart rate is accurate, but 198, 199 beats per minute seems incredibly high to me. But kudos to her if she's managed to maintain that, that's for sure. But yeah, as you see, team is now.
I'm looking at Chloe right now, and she's at around 210 beats per minute. She's just finished her turn, so now she's just trying to cover as much as possible. Try and get that heart rate down. I think it's hovering still at around 210, so not sure what a max heart rate is, but definitely working very hard, these riders.
Well, yeah, it's just the old school of thought was it was always 220 minus your age, but of course, sports science shows us that is definitely not true, especially if not for these riders or anyone who trains regularly, because of course some riders, I remember seeing some heart rate data from Chris Froome, and actually his maximum heart rate is up in the 160s or something ridiculous like that. But then, as you can see, Chloe here is pushing over 200 beats per minute and seems to do in most races. So actually, it's just down to your individual physiology. Makes you tick.
Absolutely, everyone's different. Heart rate is quite a funny thing, really. Obviously, I can get my heart rate about 10-15 beats higher on Zwift than I can outside. So obviously, heat makes a difference. So that definitely will raise the heart rate slightly. It depends on what training these riders have been doing. If they're a little bit more fatigued, maybe the heart rate can't go as high. If they've just finished a rest week, maybe the heart rate will be a little bit higher. So everyone's very individual in terms of heart rate. It's quite a specific thing to each rider.
Oh, definitely, yeah. As you see, they, as you mentioned earlier, they've just come over. I think it's that London Bridge. I'm not sure. My knowledge of London isn't fantastic, but anyway, they've descended down into the underground, and they're going to pop out just now, right on cue, and into the Surrey Hills.
Yeah, I think this is probably the most difficult part of the course. But the course that you can make a lot of time or lose a lot of time. I've done this course in the past, and we had a team coming close behind us, maybe within 10 seconds. We took 20 seconds out of them just on this small section. So it's from here onwards is the bit where you can really press on, make the time. You can win it or lose it on this part, I'd say.
Yeah, I guess it's well, like you said, it sounds super crucial, and actually, I think as I was saying earlier, with the Loughborough cycling team making up time on the flat, that would maybe suggest that they're perhaps slightly heavier riders and able to put out more power, more raw power. So fingers crossed, this is where our riders will have higher watts per kilo and be able to make that time back. They are 7 seconds down at the moment, but as you mentioned, Matt, as well, it does depend on where you are on the course. They may be on the descent and it may flash up past sort of 10 seconds or so, but don't be too concerned about that, because obviously our riders will then make up that time again on the descent. So it's not an exact science, is what I'm trying to say.
If you look on your right now, that is the entrance to boxing. We'll be going straight on. This slight drag as Frankie's pushing on the pace, stringing it out a bit. As looking at the road, there's a rider about a minute and a half ahead from the Canyon Coalition team. So I think they might be the 3-minute team, wasn't they? Because it was KC, Cycling, in front of them.
Yeah, you're right.
It'll be interesting to see over the top of this climb whether the gap to the Loughborough Cycling comes down. You can see it's coming down slightly now. It was at 1 minute 8. Now it's around 1 minute 6. But on these undulating terrain, the clocks aren't quite right, so maybe when we get onto the descent, the time should be a little bit more accurate.
So am I right in thinking that we are now over the climb, or are we just on sort of the draggy top part of it, I guess? It's sort of, looking at the profile here in front of me, there's a steeper section, which I think we're done, and what I think we have done, and now, we just kind of crested that climb, I think, haven't we?
Yeah, I think that's the worst part of the climb. You can see the distance, it does drag on slightly, but we're now slightly going downhill, so Frankie's pushing on the pace, up in the speed, ready for this next little drag. If you can carry as much speed as possible up it, makes it easier, you can get over the top, and then there's a nice little descent, so some of the riders can get a bit of recovery. I think you can just about freewheel down it. You can just get them 5 or 10 seconds off the pedals. It's just enough sometimes to have enough recovery just to get you fresh or fresher, and it can help you to get to the finish and put a bit more power down in this final 11 kilometres to go.
So what sort of speeds will they need to be doing in order to be able to freewheel and kind of have that bit of a rest, Matt?
I believe it is 56 kilometres per hour, so what's that, about 36 mile an hour? So once you hit that mark, you can stop pedalling, go into the super tuck. I know it's banned in road racing, but it's not banned in Zwift racing yet, so just get that bit of recovery in that super tuck position. Maybe come from the back. Ride, you can carry a bit more speed, go through the riders to the front, and give up the speed of the group into the flat section.
From memory, I saw 0 watts flashing up on the screen for Alderney's power profile. My heart was in my mouth for a second there. I thought she had a power dropout, but we're all good.
Yeah, I think if you had a power dropout now with these 4 riders, it would be game over. I think they'd have to wait for them. They'd have to sort it, because you can't finish the race with less than 4 riders at this point. I know that Meg, I think she had some, was it mechanical difficulties I saw in one of the group chats with her rear mech. I think that's why she couldn't ride tonight.
It's a shame. I think she's just come off the back of a bit of a training camp. Obviously, she was out in Abu Dhabi or the UAE, and just I think the easiest way for her to get back to the UK was to come through Cyprus. So she's had a good block of sunny training out there. Not saying that it hasn't been sunny here, but perhaps a couple of degrees warmer out in Cyprus, and some nice long climbs, that's for sure. Hopefully Meg will be back in action in the coming weeks with some good form.
Definitely, I think it would be much better weather there than here, and maybe some smoother roads as well, less potholes to worry about. Obviously, it's not been too bad weather here. Last couple of days have been quite nice and sunny. But it was really windy, so it was a little bit hard to ride around. But yeah, hopefully some nice weather to come. Get a nice, great British summer, hopefully.
That's the thing about racing in the UK, isn't it? Not necessarily on Zwift because it's controlled conditions, but I mean, racing in the UK in real life, you've got to be prepared for all kinds of weather, and actually, in that respect, racing in the UK rewards a rider who can adapt to conditions well, who can sort of choose their equipment wisely, and has a decent skill set in most areas, which I think I'm right in saying all of these riders do.
Absolutely, at this level, these riders are definitely going to be very good at adapting to situations, whether it be the weather, something happens in the race. Just trying to keep cool, try not to stress about things you can't control, and just to be as prepared as possible. Well, obviously, all these riders have got the support of coaches and from the Loughborough University support services, so they're going to be in the best condition for these races. And whatever's thrown at them, whether that be the weather or anything during the race.
So as you can see, the just coming up what's called the escalator. Now this, as you can see there, it's 15% max gradient. no more than maybe 20, 25 seconds of effort, if that. But actually, they've made up a decent chunk of time on. Well, not Rocker Cobra, unfortunately. As you can see, they've gone past the Coalition Synergy team, but actually our riders are closing in on that Coalition Synergy team extremely quickly now, bringing that down to under a minute.
Yep, so it looks like they should catch the Canyon Coalition Synergy team, which the gap's coming down pretty quickly. It's now around about 50 seconds. We've got about 9 kilometres to go, so once we've crossed this bridge, we'll be back to the starting pens and we'll be doing the first part that round to the mile as we did earlier on in this race. So around 8 kilometres left to go. Pretty much all of the climbing's done. We've just got that one little drag, and it's looking good for a good result here. Maybe not beating the Rocker Cobra cycling, but I'm sure in the next couple of weeks they'll want to beat them again. They want the revenge, I think.
Well, it's certainly not all over yet. I mean, it looks to me like if we can jump through to the Rocker Cobra cycling group, they're also down to 4 riders. So one rider has been dispatched from their team, or two, depending on how many they started off with. But actually, I mean, who knows? They might end up. One of the riders may end up blowing up. As you see, they are beginning to let a few gaps open up on this sharp incline. But yeah, not looking in too much difficulty at the moment. But I'd say our team is tucking in better, that's for sure. At least on this section of the course. But yeah, we'll.
Yeah, obviously, the time gaps can still come down. There's still 8 kilometres to go. 19 seconds. It's still possible. I think maybe if one of their riders starts to struggle quite a bit, the gap can definitely come down. I've seen firsthand how quickly a gap can be closed on this platform. If one rider explodes, loses the draft, the others have to wait for them. 10 seconds can be lost really, really quickly.
Mm-hmm. As you said, it's only 17 seconds. It's certainly not a million miles away.
Yeah, it's just hovering. I think it's come down about 1 or 2 seconds just in this last little section, down to 1 minute 16 for this rider at the back of their team. It's not over yet, as I said. Maybe I was speaking a bit too early when I said they will come back for revenge, but we'll wait to see. I think Frankie's popping a power-up here, or a feather power-up.
So she's obviously managed to somehow get through the no power-ups limit on in the game at the moment. Perhaps we're wrong, and actually power-ups have been allowed in this. Or either that or Frankie's just got lucky. One of the two.
Well, from what I know is I don't think they were allowed in time trials. I might be wrong, but from my knowledge, I think that's true. I'm sure somebody might be able to correct me. But yeah, if that's true, then she's got lucky.
She certainly won't be penalised for it, because actually it's a technical glitch if actually she has been given a power up mistakenly. So nothing to worry about. Always positive.
Can't do anything. It'll be the game's fault if that happened. Yeah.
So it's now come down to. The name is
15, I think.
Yeah, I thought I saw 14 seconds there, but then I wasn't sure if actually I was being optimistic and saw a rider from another team. But actually, it looks like the Rocker Cobra cycling squad have maybe benefited slightly from having slower teams in front and have been able to draft off those teams, perhaps. So there's definitely a good couple of seconds in that. So actually, I wonder whether maybe being the fastest seeded team or the top seeded team has actually perhaps not worked in Loughborough Lightning, the Recruitment Group's favour this evening.
Yeah, I'm just looking at their power to weight, and it's not massive really. There's a couple of riders in the 3 watt per kilo mark. They're definitely not pushing as much as our riders, I don't think. With the riders at more over 4 to 5 watts per kilo. Frankie's just pushed it up, obviously 5.5, 5.7 there. She's just carried this speed up this little drag. Maybe that can just claw back a couple of seconds to string the group out, get the riders in one long line of drafting. Maybe it's not all over yet. Still 1 minute 15 seconds. They brought back 3. So if they can keep this up, still in with a chance.
I guess what Frankie needs to do here is actually, at that distance, none of the rest of the team are getting an awful lot of draft off her wheel. So actually, even though she is the strongest time trialist in this group, she needs to kind of measure her effort and actually make sure that when she's laying down those watts, the other 3 riders are on her wheel. Because as you said, it's a team time trial, and it's all about getting that 4th rider across the line.
Absolutely. I think the draft does go up to around 8 metres there on this game.
Okay.
Although the stronger draft is up to 3 metres, but if you went in a long line, up to 8 metres behind, you do get a bit of a draft. What you can do is string it out and get the other riders just to push on a little bit, just to up the speed of all the riders. As the gap's now at 1 minute 13, so another 2 seconds clawed back just from in the last 30 seconds to a minute. 1 minute 12 now. Definitely coming down. I think it's going to be close.
Yep, and as you were just talking about the ideal position for a team to be in there, all strung out, the girls actually, they were modelling it perfectly, one behind the other, and I think that's probably where they managed to gain those couple of seconds back. So if they can maintain that discipline and actually stay one behind the other for the remaining 4 kilometres of this team time trial, they might still be within a chance.
I think this is going to be the final key section of the course. I think this little climb, 4 or 5%, they can push on up there and over the top, get the speed up as quick as possible onto this descent. They can clear back a couple more seconds. There's one of the riders, I think that is
Hannah.
Alderney. Is it Hannah up in the pile up at the back here?
Yeah, so Hannah's just really sent it up that climb, and I'm not sure about the other. Alderney, you were right. Has just deployed a feather power up to maybe get back onto the back of that group. Hopefully, Hannah isn't paying for her efforts too much as she slips off the back of the group a little bit. She's back in contact, so that's good to see. And actually, I think they played that perfectly because Hannah's initial effort going into the climb made sure that the rest of the riders benefited from a decent draft and had to dig in going up the middle slopes of the climb. And then as a result of Alderney's power up, she was able to move to the front and they maintained a decent speed all the way up.
Yeah, let's need to push on now, get the speed up as quick as possible on this little descent. So they left just a couple of seconds on that little climb there. Now back down to 1 minute 17, so what's that, 4 or 5 seconds lost? But still, the other team may have paid for their effort up that climb onto the final flat section. We're into the final 3 or 4 kilometres now, so still all to play for. And as they're coming up to the Coalition Synergy team, maybe just get a bit of a draft going through them. That might be enough just to bring the gap down, maybe by 5 or 10 seconds. But it's still then going to be all to play for as they turn right onto one of the final straights of this course. We go along here to the mile, and as you saw earlier, round the hairpin and round to the finish.
So yeah, as you can see on the mini map on the top right hand side, you can see some little red dots, maybe a couple of 100 metres up the road, and that is, as Matt said, the Coalition Synergy team, so they're hunting them down in these final few kilometres. I don't think they're going to quite get there, as the finish line again just comes into view on the mini map. That little banner graphic that you can see that the blue arrow is just drawing level with. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they can catch that team before the line and make the most of any draft benefit that it provides.
These riders now are going to be absolutely on their limit. The last 2 kilometres now, they've got to get everything out that they can. It'll be the last couple of turns for the riders, maybe 1 or 2 more turns each. Definitely the hardest part as you come around to the hairpin, and then you just got to sprint really as much as you can round into that final 200 or 300 metres. You might see some orange numbers, but if they've paced it well enough, you probably won't see much of a rise. But obviously these riders will be getting as much out as possible after their last one. think there's a couple of riders needed a bucket, I think.
As you can see, the mini map is littered with teams of 4, 5, 6 riders on the top right hand side there, and actually it's interesting to see the gaps between the two. You can kind of get a good idea perhaps of which teams have done well at this format and which ones haven't, as another team just goes past the Loughborough Lightning team on the final stretch of their race. Our team is still yet to make that hairpin turn. Of course, they are the last team on the course, so the fastest seeded team. So there is nobody behind them at the moment. I don't think they're going to catch the Coalition Synergy team, but hopefully they might be able to make benefit of the draft in the last straight of this team time trial.
Yeah, so looking at the Loughborough team, they're still holding it about the same gap. As the riders come around this final hairpin, they'll kick out this corner and then into the final, I think 700 to 800 metres now. Pretty much all straight, just a bit of a left-hand kink. But it doesn't look like they're going to catch this Coalition Synergy team. But they did start, 2 or 3 minutes ahead? I think they're just going to finish a little bit down on the Loughborough cycling team, but obviously they're going to have a good couple of point buffer after the wins in the first 3 rounds.
Yeah, I certainly remember last week on the New York Sprint, there was a South African Loughborough cycling rider who was closing in on the win in the dying moments of the race, but actually Frankie went past and actually put a couple of seconds into the end. So actually, yeah, I think you're right there. This second place, well, we hope it's going to be a second place, won't discourage the girls too much. They said they still got a nice points buffer after a sterling performance in the first 3 rounds. We'll be looking for another win next week. Are you able to get results up, Matt, to get a rough ballpark of what the other teams have done? Are we able to sort of know whether we are closing in on that second place or not?
I can try and have a look now.
As you just see Hannah putting out almost 9 watts a kilo. So she said orange numbers from her. Frankie up to 6, Chloe up to 6, Alderney up to 5. It's all about getting that 4th rider across the line. You see the spectators, or the virtual spectators.
Yeah, so from what I can see, all the riders did over 4 watts per kilo average for the time trial. So it was Chloe doing, I think it's a heart rate of around 211 to 212 beats per minute as they come across the finish line. Finished there for, I think, they've all put a massive effort out there. It's really, really good work. I think that's going to be potentially second place on the night. We'll see later. Can't see the results on Zwift Power in the team time trials. But obviously, very, very good riding from the riders in this team time trial. Next week, I think, is the Richmond Cobbled Climbs course. So I'd say the hardest race in this league. Just constantly up 1 to 2 minute climbs, just one after each other, 3 laps of it. A really, really, really difficult course.
Certainly sounds like it could be an exciting one. As we were following Hannah, I think, and obviously she's just exited the map, exited the game, so we've just been dropped onto a random rider in the London world at the moment. So I think now is a good time to wrap it up. And as Matt said, be sure to tune in next week when we fly over the pond and head over to Richmond in Virginia for the Cobbled Climbs course, which is in that points format again. So we'll be back to frantically trying to figure out who's finishing the top 10 on various different segments and keeping us on our toes again. But thanks for tuning in, thanks for joining, and from me, that's thanks very much. I'll hand back over to Matt for the final say.
Absolutely. Thank you to the Recruitment Group, the sponsor of the team. Obviously, you can see on the screen all the other sponsors. You've got Lima Helmets, Cookery, Cycling Analytics, Santini. I'd like to thank you all for watching this stream. We've had about 9 or 10 people come and watch the whole thing. Very good riding from the riders. Obviously, the team time trial, very difficult event, especially in this game, indoors. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. The same time next week, so around 7:15 for the couple of laps of the Richmond UCI Awards course. Thank you, have a good evening, and we'll see you next week.